Welcome to Undrafted Hockey Fan. I'm Brad. Today we're doing the Red Wings podcast. Today I want to talk about the Red Wings because we just got back from the Four Nations tournament. Red Wings played 2 games. Mind you, of those 2 games, they get 3 out of the 4 points available. Now, I'm a little upset on how it happens. Right, the thing is it's a bit frustrating because these 2 games were a little indicative of the slow start that the Red Wings had. Kind of, right? Because when you look at what happened with Minnesota Wild, that game was a pretty complete lock until like the third period when it was 3-1 and like they lost in overtime, which was a bad way to lose, right? And the Ducks should not have been able to crawl their way back to go to OT either, right? It was just a little bit of a clunker, and it was very frustrating because the Wild one's a little more understandable because they're a better team, in my opinion. The Minnesota Wild have higher end players. Mind you, they don't even have Kaprizov or anything like that, but they have more established players, I would say. And the Red Wings are growing, but I think they're not there yet. And Minnesota had a very hot start as well. And the Ducks are clearly bad. They're definitely on a rebuilding year, and you should not have let him get that close to winning a game. It's a little bit frustrating on the Alex Lyon front. I don't think he played a bad game. I don't think he played an amazing game. But it was definitely a bit frustrating. So some of the things I want to talk about today and I want to highlight are Four Nations. We just come back to Four Nations. There's a lot of good aspects as well. Villi Husso was just traded. Andrew Copp's on IR, and Michael Rasmussen using his day-to-day, and they end up calling up Sheldon Dries. So there's a bit we want to talk about. So in a little bit about the trade deadline, I did do a full video on some trades that I suggested. They should trade for Matt. I thought they should trade for Matt Grzelcyk, and I'll give you what my thought process on that was later. Just a quick one because I already did a whole video on it. I also said that they should trade Tarasenko and who they should get back. Andrew Mangiapane, and also Justin Holl as well to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Dante Fabbro. So we'll kind of go over these as well at the end. But you want to stick through. Hit like, subscribe. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or any, Amazon, you can find me on all those as well. So make sure you get a 5-star rating because it really helps small creators like me. And I'm just trying to build a brand. So I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. I love you guys already. So anyways, let's jump right into it. Four Nations was phenomenal for both the participants that went to there. You have Raymond, who put up 3 points. It was in 3 games, had 3 assists. He actually tied Sweden's for leading scorers. Erik Karlsson also had 3 points as well. And Larkin had 2 points in 4 games. He also had a game-winning goal as well in the game. And I believe it was the game against how was it? Sweden. Anyways, I can't remember right now. It's it feels, it's funny. It feels so long ago at this point. So, but again, these were great tournaments. The important thing was, I think it was huge to see that Raymond and Larkin are actually stars, or they're blossoming as stars. I know Larkin doesn't put up the same amount of points as like some of the big stars that you're seeing. Like, he's not a point per game. Even this year, I think he's sitting a little under a point per game. But there is definitely he definitely has the two-way aspect, which is not what you could say about a lot of other players, right? When you look at some players that are just all offense, Larkin definitely uses defense. Actually, Larkin has 53 points in 57 games. So I don't want to talk about Larkin for a hot second. So Larkin, he had the two-way aspect, and I thought at the start of the tournament he started on the 4th line, and I thought that was very rude. And I'm a Red Wings fan, right? They're my number 1 team. But I thought Larkin on the 4th line, that was just like disrespectful, in my opinion. He was, mind you, it was either him or Kreider. Like, they were swapping them out. And I'm like, and he had some great interviews. He was like, I just want to be a good team player. And I'm like, that's amazing. That is a great mentality you want. You want to be a good team player. And he was, but I think he's better than some of the players over here, right? Nothing to take away from like Boldy or any other players up there. Kyle Connor was on the 3rd line, left wing. And I was like, okay, like I get it a little bit, but like, and I guess in the 4th line role, Larkin has a more shutdown possibility, but again, he has high flying offense. So as well, especially with his speed. So I understand the problem is like that first period, he played 2 minutes and 25 seconds in the first game. And I'm like, what is happening, guys? So that was a bit frustrating there. And so we ended up seeing him in the next game going up to the third line center. He moved to third line. I think it was center or winger. And then near the end of the tournament, the final game of the championship game, he ends up in the first line winger, which is phenomenal, right? He really earned his stripes, and I love to see that, and I can't wait for him. To me, in my opinion, Larkin is the new Captain America. Before it was Joe Pavelski when he was in the San Jose Sharks, and then he went to the Dallas Stars. Very, very like Captain America, right? He was like that like solid American player, right? And the thing is, he's a little feisty, but he's not. He's a leader through and through. And mind you, this team, the Four Nations team, had a lot of captains and everything. But to me, I thought Larkin just he was strong in the sense that he had great interviews. He knew his role. He was there for the team. And that's what I love to see from him, is that he was like, hey, I'm here for the team, guys. So that was huge in my opinion. So again, give me your opinions on Larkin. I really want to know, because to me, like, I just felt like he finally showed up a little bit on the worldview. And mind you, he hasn't been injured this year, which is so nice, to be honest. So again, 53 points in 57 games this year. Again, not a huge show up in the Four Nations, but again, I think this is a guy that absolutely will make the Olympics. I think there's no doubt in my mind, honestly. I think he brings too much on both sides of the puck. And we're going to see him just continue to thrive. And as Detroit continues to get better, I think we're going to actually see him get better, because he's going to be surrounded by even better players. I mean, even right now, he's surrounded by Marco Kasper with 22 points in 52 games, and his line mate representing Sweden, Lucas Raymond, who has 63 points in 57 games, doing phenomenally. And again, on Team Sweden, 3 points, 3 games, tied Erik Karlsson. I mean, that's definitely some good company. Norris winner over there. So with Raymond, though, to me, Raymond's really started to show out as a really good player, right? I think he was playing like second and third line when he played with the Sweden. But again, he's a guy who's really starting to break out. And mind you, he's so young too. I think he's 22 if I'm pulling it up right now. He's 22 years old. I mean, I think he doesn't he turns 23 this year in March. So like, he's still so young. It's crazy. It's his third or fourth year with the team. His fourth year with the team. So again, this guy's just starting to absolutely break out, which we love to see, because again, Raymond is going to be one of those guys, probably genuinely could be the best out of his draft class. His fourth year with the team. If we're looking at what is happening with so if I typed in the 2020 NHL draft in DB, so in a hockey DB, we look at some of the stats. I'm just going to base on points right now, just to show you on points. So currently, it is Tim Stützle. Currently, he has 305 points in 342 games. That's phenomenal. Raymond coming up in second at 237 and 295. So he's sitting second already in points. And then you have third is Jarvis, fourth is Lafreniere, and then you have Mercer. But mind you, this is a guy that fell to fourth, right? He was considered not the highest, I would say. So when you look at the 2020 draft, Alexis Lafreniere was considered, hey, he's going to be the best, right? He's a center, and he's big. He's from the QMJHL, and he's going to be big. He's going to be is it QMJHL, and then you had what was his face? Quinton Byfield. Quinton Byfield was like, oh, another center from the OHL. He's going to break out, and now he is starting to break out. Now he did sign the 6-year contract. 5 or 6 year contract with the LA Kings for like $6.5 million, which by the way will take him for agency, which is kind of crazy. Like right at the prime of his when he's soon to break out. You have Tim Stützle, of course, going third overall, phenomenal player, third overall. Honestly, might be the best player in this draft. But he's so offensively minded. I think there's a little bit of defensive warts in his game. I think Lucas Raymond is showing a little bit more defensive capability, which could be really helpful for him, right? Also, there is a stigma that was said by Brandon Gallagher that Tim Stützle was a diver. I'm not saying it's true, but there are people, if there's someone talking about it in the media, it gets spread around and refs hear that thing and are less likely to be calling him. So call plays on him, right? It's just a thought. I don't watch enough Ottawa Senator games to say yes or no. But to me, that is something that you have to consider. The player now is so young too. He's got to be 22-ish as well, right? Because he was drafted at the same time. He's currently 23 years old. Okay, he just turned 23 in January. So when you think a guy that's going to play for another decade, you don't want that stigma around you. So with Raymond really starting to break out, I think there is a possibility. Mind you, their centers are more valuable than wingers, right? They're absolutely more valuable because you can move them to the winger as they get older. We've seen Tim Stützle back in 22, 23, put up 90 points in 78 games, right? That's something that Raymond has not yet done. Just to be frank, he has not done it yet. That doesn't mean he can't do it, right? With at the pace that he's going right now, Lucas Raymond has 63 points in 57 games. So going clear, use my calculator, 63 points divided by 57 games times 82. You're looking at 90.6 pace. Could be, if you round up, a 91 pace, which would actually take out Tim Stützle. He's actually currently on pace to beat Tim Stützle in points as well, which is something to consider, right? And this could be the point where we see them kind of split off, and maybe Lucas Raymond starts to take the reins and start to play a little bit better. But mind you, Tim Stützle is always also on a team in Ottawa who is absolutely fighting for a playoff spot. And actually, they're also, I think they're fighting for the same playoff spot because they're in the Atlantic Division. And if we look at the playoffs right now in the Eastern Conference, Red Wings are sitting at 64 points in 64 points in the wildcard spot, while the Ottawa Senators at 62 points in the same number of games in that second wildcard spot. So they're absolutely fighting for the same wildcard spots. And currently, you have 5 teams from the East that are from the Atlantic Division that are fighting for those 5 spots. And of course, Boston Bruins are 1 point behind the Ottawa Senators. And then, yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of teams that can, I mean, the East is kind of crazy. There's a lot of infighting. It's exciting, but it is a little nerve wracking as a Red Wings fan. So, but this is the exciting part about the Red Wings is that there's a lot of things happening. And so we're looking at the trade, if we're looking at the trade deadline, well, actually, and I'm going to talk about the rookies as well. I want to talk about the rookies and how this is also how we'll go on after the break. I want to talk to about the Yzerplan and how it is working. It is taking a long time, but the Yzerplan is working. It just took a little bit longer than we thought, right? So moving on to, I'm going to do this really quickly. Actually, we'll talk about the cap space and everything. So Red Wings made a trade today. It was Villi Husso for future considerations to the Anaheim Ducks. So it's just the Anaheim Ducks taking on the rest of his contract. Okay. So mind you, Villi Husso, 30 years old with the Red Wings this year, only played 9 games. He's a 3.7 goals against and a 0.866 save percentage. That's basically that's some of the worst save percentages in the league. That's AHL goaltending. And in his career, with the St. Louis Blues and the Detroit Red Wings, after 141 games, he has a 3.0 save percentage or goals against, and only a 900 save percentage. Now this year, 900 save percentage is better, where he's 30 years old. He's played several years in the NHL. That is just not good enough. And mind you, the Red Wings are not a good enough team. They did trade for him for a 3rd round pick for his rights from the St. Louis Blues. But this guy, he's in the AHL. He's not going to get playing time. And to me, the Villi Husso trade is more indicative of the Anaheim Ducks looking to trade John Gibson, I imagine, to the Edmonton Oilers. So in this case, we have Villi Husso again. But that's not us right now. Pat Verbeek was a assistant GM for the Detroit Red Wings, and now the GM of the Ducks. But we're not talking about the Anaheim Ducks. We'll like, oh my god, the different video with the Anaheim Ducks trade. Well, their whole thing, whatever's going on over there. But with Villi Husso set to become a UFA this summer, Red Wings were not going to re-sign him. He was making too much money. He was down in the AHL, and as Puckpedia writes down in their in the trade section, I'm going to quote right here. It says Puckpedia staff says, while in the minors, Husso carries a 3.6 cap hit since 1.15 million of his 4.75 million cap hit is saved when in the minors. So Red Wings they save a little bit of cap space, 1.15 million while he's in the minors. But basically what's happening is that the Red Wings are paying $3.6 million in cap space for Villi Husso to play in the minors. So, but you still have to pay another goalie up here, which they're paying Alex Lyon with $900,000. That was a steal. And Cam Talbot with a 2-year deal at $2.5 million. So for a goalie setup, paid him about $6 million, that's still really great, right? But you have a guy, again, you're paying $3.6 million to play in the minors. And that's so by Red Wings moving him off, they save $3.6 million in cap space right there. So, and usually if a team wants to acquire a goalie in this, and they continue, Puckpedia does, typically to have a team take on $3.6 million in dead cap space at this point in the season would be a third round pick, according to Puckpedia's Perry cap relief calculator. So usually at this point, to get rid of Villi Husso, it would cost them a third round pick just to send the contract over there, right? And they're not at this point. They didn't have to do that. At the Anaheim Ducks took this again, I believe, because they're going to be trading John Gibson, so they need another veteran goaltender because they have Lucas Dostal, and they have another guy down in the minors, or that is there, but he's not ready to take on that full NHL like tandem with him and Dostal. Dostal's already played a ton. But again, this would be good for Husso. He'll get some NHL playing time, and they can work for another contract. Maybe Anaheim re-signs him as well, just to have like a guy here. So that is the trade for Villi Husso. Again, so what is the Red Wings going to do? So Red Wings now have they have some cap space now. So moving off that at 3.6, they're currently sitting at $10.8 million in cap space of current cap space. That is the equivalent of basically Mitch Marner. If they send a guy down to the AHL, they could acquire a full-blown Mitch Marner's contract. So, and according to this, they actually have $13 million in cap space right now. They have $13 million in deadline cap space. So, but that's if when the deadline hits, right? If they made no other moves, right? So, but with the current cap space, they have $10.8 million. So we're looking at who would they want to trade for. A couple of guys they can want to trade for could be, like I talked about, a Matt Grzelcyk. That could be, again, moving off some cap space. There's plenty of things that they can do. Maybe they're going to trade now for a big free agent because they like a Mitch Marner. I think that's more of an off-season move. I don't think they're going to do it. I think he resigns in Toronto. I think a guy that they could genuinely go for, and this is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. A guy like Mikko Rantanen could be someone that they absolutely trade for. He is not currently working out in the Carolina system, and I think it's a shame. It's very much a shame. But this is a guy that they can absolutely trade for. Because Mikko Rantanen is currently with the again the Carolina Hurricanes. Looking up his stats with the Colorado Avalanche, he was putting up 1.3 points per game, 64 points in 49 games. With the Carolina Hurricanes, which was, again, this is a tough move for him, moving from some of his best friends and everything. And there were some hard negotiations with the Colorado Avalanche that were not working out. He gets traded to Carolina, who they trade Jack Drury first, second, and Jack Drury and Marty Natchez, I believe it was. Let me see real quick. I'll pull it up. Where you at? That's the. Oh, it's not showing. Anyways, so the full details: 3-way trade, with Taylor Hall. I forgot about Taylor Hall going to the Chicago Blackhawks, or from the Chicago Blackhawks to the Carolina Hurricanes. So Carolina Hurricanes get Marty Natchez, Jack Drury, a second and a fourth round pick. Sorry, not a first. And they also get Taylor Hall in that as well. So. Is there something that the Red Wings would be looking to do, getting a Marty or trading out an equivalent to get a Mikko Rantanen? Mind you, Marty Natchez was one of those guys that was on a phenomenal point streak. So if you're looking at what Marty Natchez has done this year so far, in 49 games, he has 55 points. Phenomenal. Jack Drury, 9 points, 39 games. Again, a bottom six guy. Can't play center. He's young. He has an extra year on his contract left. So is that someone the Red Wings could absolutely trade for? I mean, totally. What would that cost? Because that's going to cost you a lot. Martin H is an established player on the an established player on the team. So you need to trade a guy that is worth trading. And to me, it's kind of big. It is big, but I could see. And this is more because it's I think if you do a Rantanen, you're upgrading a ton. And to me, I think a guy, and I don't know, again, not that I want to, this is not a want. This is a potential that it could happen. I think an Alex DeBrincat could be up for a trade. I think you would end up having to trade something if you did an equivalent to a Rantanen trade. Mind you, Rantanen's value is down now, but again, the Carolina Hurricanes are going to be looking to add. So if you're not going to get a equivalent to a Marty or Mikko Rantanen, you might have to trade a. So I'm going to do the equivalency. It would be a Alex DeBrincat, which is your Marty Necas equivalent in this case. It was a winger. Then you have your Jack Drury replacement would be your Michael Rasmussen, I imagine. And then if you want to do a second round pick and a fourth round pick, right? So those would be equivalents. I think that is something that is absolutely around the same value of what Carolina traded. And both guys are actually locked up for quite a bit. You have an Alex DeBrincat who's in the second year of a 4-year deal. So if they trade for him, they'd have him this year plus 2 more years left. And a Michael Rasmussen who just recently, relatively recently, he's in the first year of a 4-year contract. So they'd have him for the rest of this year and 3 more years after that. To me, and again, Michael Rasmussen is 6'6", so that's a good, bottom 6 guy. But that is an equivalent that the Red Wings could be trading for, and they could be giving him an 8-year contract at, because the reason you would trade for a Rantanen is, one, you're trying to improve the team substantially, which we know that Mikko Rantanen can do because we know that he can just put up a crazy amount of points. So if I'm pulling up a Rantanen, if I pull up him, again, this is a guy that has had phenomenal. So how old is he? He's 20 years old. So this is a guy you give an 8-year contract to because you want to bring the cap it down. You probably offer him like a $12.6 million contract, which is equivalent of over $100 million. And the reason why you do that is because a guy like Mikko Rantanen in the last 2 years had over 100 points in each one. And even the year before that, he had 92 points in 75 games. He was on a pace for over 100 points. So he had 105 points in 22-23 and 104 points in 23-24. So that is why you trade for a guy like this, right? And if we look at his playoff numbers as well, in the year that the Avalanche in 2021-22, when the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup, he had 25 points in 20 games. In the year after that, he had 10 points in 7 games. And the year after that, he had 14 points in 11 games. He's over a point per game in the playoffs as well. So are you going to get 100-point Mikko Rantanen? Probably not. Can you get 90-point? I think you can. And I think you get a guy that's going to come onto this team. And my biggest hesitation is you don't trade for this guy unless there's an 8-year contract. That was one of the pitfalls of Carolina is they knew that if they didn't, they traded from early, one, so that if they couldn't sign him, they could trade him again, right? So they traded for him in January, right? Like late January. He's not working out right now. He had a decent tournament. I think he had a decent. Let me pull up his. What did he go to? We're gonna go to Elite Prospects. We're gonna do a Mikko Rantanen, Rantanen DB. He for the 4 nations. I'm very sure with Finland, he had a good tournament as well, because I think that was one of the things that he looked good. He looked good. I just don't have the numbers right in front of me of how well he did. In the 4 nations, he only had one goal in 3 games. I mean, it's a bummer. I mean, Finland was not a great team, right? But by the way, even projected right now, mind you, this is taken in his Colorado Avalanche numbers as well. He's projected to have 97 points at the current pace of his whole year. If you take his whole year, he's on pace for 97 points in 81 games. That's pretty phenomenal. And I think this is something that we can do. The Red Wings could trade for. He is the big fish right now. If he goes to free agency, the Red Wings have to be willing to spend the equivalent of $14 million a year for 7 years to get this guy, because that's approximately how much it costs. So again, the reason you acquire him is you get that 8th year, right? So you give him the 8 years, you can get, and let's say he wants $100 million. I mean, just as an easy number. Supposedly, that's what he wanted, was $100 million. His agent said they think he could have got $14 million $14 million a year in free agency over 7 years. If you did $14 million, so you did a 14 times 7, that's clear. 14 times 7, that's $98 million a year. Okay, $98 million a year. I'm going to divide that by 8 years. That's $12.25 million a year. So if you trade for Mikko Rantanen, you have to be willing to give him the $12.25 million a year because he believes that in free agency, he can get 14. And you trade for him for that 8th year. So maybe you give, instead of 12.25, you give him 12.4, let's say, right? You just entice him that little extra. Hey, we want you here for 8 years. That's what I think it would be take to get a guy like this. And the reason I trade Michael Rasmussen is because I think he's great. He's 25 years old. He's a bottom 6 guy. You can find bottom six guys, and he's locked up as well. I like Michael Rasmussen a lot. I think he's tradable. I think him, Joe Veleno, plenty of guys on this team are absolutely tradable. They're not part of the long-term feature because this is not Yzerman's plan yet, right? Rasmussen was not drafted by Yzerman. He is not part of their plan. Alex DeBrincat wanted to come home. He got him in a great steal. Alex DeBrincat is 27 years old. The issue is, and the thing is, he's only signed for this year and 2 years after that. And at that point, he'll be 20. Maybe he'll be 30 when he turns that age. He'll be age 20. He'll be 29 when he does that. And a guy like Alex DeBrincat's going to want a long-term contract. He's going to want 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Are the Red Wings the ones that want to give him that, right? Why don't they trade him while he still has value for a bigger fish? And a bigger fish, mind you, the decline of Alex DeBrincat is different than the decline of Mikko Rantanen. Mikko Rantanen has scored 50 goals before. Alex DeBrincat has scored 40 goals once in 21-22 with the Chicago Blackhawks. But this guy's never been a point-per-game player. I lied. In 2020-21, he was a point-per-game player. I apologize. Never been a point-per-game player. When you look at a guy like Mikko Rantanen and the results that you can get from him, this guy's been a point-per-game player every year since 17-18, besides 1 year in the COVID season, we had 41 points in 42 games. That's the type of player that you're trading for. The decline, if you got him for half, if he reduced by 25-30%, he's still scoring more than Alex DeBrincat. He had 55 goals in 22-23. He's had 42 goals in 23-24. Like, this guy can score. He can pass. He can assist. Like, this guy is a monster. I think this is the big fish that you're looking for is someone like a Mikko Rantanen. The stipulation I have, and this is even if he signs the 8-year contract, there is the possibility that you may need to surround him with more Finnish players. I think one of the reasons Carolina traded for a Mikko Rantanen is that Carolina, like the Florida Panthers and the Dallas Stars, all have heavy Finnish backgrounds. They have heavy Finnish players. You're talking about a Heiskanen on the Dallas Stars. You're talking about like the Barkov on the Florida Panthers. Those are just the top players on each of those teams. The Carolina Hurricanes, you're talking about Sebastian Aho, Kotkaniemi. Like, there's these guys there is something to talking them in your mother tongue. The Finnish team talks about, or was it Mika Zibanejad talked about it, it was so cool. He hadn't been back to Sweden in like 9 years, something like that. It was so cool for him to be talking to other guys in his mother tongue and in Swedish. The meetings were in Swedish. Then when they talked at the tables, they're talking in Swedish. There's something important to talk about in your native tongue because you're surrounded by guys that are of the same country. It's important, right? So I think that is something that should be taken into consideration. If you're going to trade for Mikko Rantanen, you have to look to trade for maybe another Finnish guy, right? They already traded Olli Mata. They traded away. They've traded Villi Husso, another Finnish guy. So you have to consider you might have to bring in someone who's a buddy for Mikko Rantanen, right? So that's something just to consider there as well. Another Finnish guy you could trade for, Patrick Laine from the Montreal Canadiens, is just an option. Again, a guy who has been traded this past summer. But those are some of the options that I'm thinking what the Red Wings have to do. And again, let me know what your thoughts are on this, because I think it's not crazy. I think it makes a total amount of sense. I don't think if we're looking at some of the other guys that are UFAs at the end of this year who are not signed, you have Mitch Marner. I think he resigns with Toronto. These are all the top guys. These are the top performing guys, according to Puckpedia. Again, Mikko Rantanen, he signed. I don't think he signs with Carolina. Matt Duchene, he'll resign with Dallas. Mikael Granlund, 32 years old, too old. Nikolai Ehlers, a guy that the Red Wings could trade for in the offseason or pick up in free agency. John Tavares, he resigns in Toronto. Brad Marchand, if he's not gonna sign with the Red Wings. He'll either sign with Boston or Colorado. Jason Zucker, too old. Chikrin will probably resign with the Washington Capitals. Like, these are some of the guys that are performing well, right? These are guys that are all like a point or 6 points every 7 games, right? Ryan Donato, Jamie Benn, like Claude Giroux, like these guys are not going to be signing with the Red Wings. They're either too old or they're just not the high caliber. Maybe Ryan Donato, maybe, but I don't think he's going to get too much money. Maybe a Brock Besser, but again, maybe a Sam Bennett, maybe. But again, these are like, you want the big swing. The Red Wings are in a position for the big swing. I think maybe a Sam Bennett would be a good one. But again, I think he just resigns in Florida, let's be honest. I just think that Florida makes too much sense for him. He's making $4.4 million a year. Currently has 35 points in 56 games. He probably makes like $6.5 million over like 6 years for the next contract. I don't know if the Red Wings want to pay for a guy like that who is just a middling production. They need to go for the big swing. They need the big players. So I'm curious. Let me know what your thoughts on them trading for Mikko Rantanen. Now, if they don't, now they have some cap space, they can afford it, right? I'm curious who they end up trading for. I got a couple ones that I can review real quick from my last video. I also want to talk about Andrew Copp now and Michael Rasmussen being out day to day. Called up Sheldon Dries, and I'm talking about the Red Wings rookies and why Yzerplan's plan is working. So stay tuned, and right after this. It might not feel like it, but spring is right around the corner. You know how you can tell? Golfers are hitting the links, and we have some tournaments to talk about. And if you want to do more than just talk, put your money where your mouth is. Get in on all the tee to green action with DraftKings Sportsbook. From Thursday's opening round through the closing round Sunday, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with tournament props, live betting, odds boost, and so much more. And if you've never bet on golf before, it's easier than you think. Just pick up something simple like a golfer to win the tourney and make your pick. It's just that easy. Now we got some tournaments coming up. We got the Puerto Rico Open, the Players Championship, the Valspar Championship, the Texas Children's Houston Open. Maybe you can bet for Stefan Jaeger to win. Maybe a little Scotty Scheffler or a little Bryce Garnett. Whatever it is, you can get in on the action. And here's something special for first timers. New to DraftKings customers, bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit cpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boo Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Okay, so we're moving on to the next part of my video. And so a couple trades real quick. I'm going to share my screen. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. If not, you can just listen through it. I'll be talking through this whole thing. But to me, I think these are a couple trades that, again, I'm going to hit these quick. Nothing too crazy. But I think that these are going to be like a good. I can't find. Where are you at? Can't even find my own video. Where are you at? Here we go. So this is what I made on Puckpedia. I'm going to go through it real quick on the audio version, but we're talking about trading a couple players. I wanted to get rid of some of the guys that are not working out with the Red Wings. There were some signings that they made that just haven't working out. So what I think is to get rid of Tarasenko. He has a no movement clause up until the end of this year. It does turn into a 16-team no trade list this summer, so it may be better to trade him next summer or this upcoming summer after the free agency or after the next year starts this summer. But if they can trade him with the trade deadline this year, I think it would make sense if they did Andrew Mangiapane for Tarasenko. Both guys equivalently have not been working out with their teams. Washington Capitals traded for Mangiapane for a second-round pick. It's not working out as well as they thought they would. So my suggestion is Tarasenko waives his no-move clause, and they trade him with a fourth-round pick at half retained, so that'd be this year and next year. So Washington's taking him on for next year as well. So this frees up cap space for next year as well. And they take back Mangiapane, who does expire this year. Give him a try, right? See if they like him. If they don't like him, they let him go in free agency. No big deal. But it does allow each team to try each player out and see if they work. And with Washington, again, talking about the culture thing, Vladmir Tarasenko is one of the reasons I believe he hasn't worked out here is he's Russian, and there's no one else to speak Russian with him. I think there's probably a little bit of again. He's been speaking English for a while. He's been in the league for a while. I don't know if it's the hugest issue, but I think it is something to say that you have a guy that can't speak the language. I think that's what happened with Villi Husso. He gets it in his head, and no one can speak Finnish with him, right? Olimato could, and then they traded him, for a third round pick to the Utah Hockey Club. But Washington, I think, would fit better. There is an Alex Ovechkin who can hype him up, and they've been around the block together. Each won Stanley Cups. I think this would give Tarasenko a chance to win a third Stanley Cup with the Washington Capitals, and that's why I think he would wait for them. So let me know what your thoughts on that one. Other one is Dante Fabbro for Justin Holl. So Dante Fabbro would be an ad in this case. So far with he was with the Nashville Predators. He had 6 games. He had 0 points. With the Columbus Blue Jackets, he has 13 points in 38 games. Playing more of like a third pair right D, but he does shoot right as well, and he's 26 years old. He gets about 3 points every 10 games. So it's a guy, right? It's a guy. It's not a huge deal. But again, I think this is something that the Red Wings could acquire and see if they like him. It's a trade deadline acquisition. Then you move off of Justin Holl. You trade Justin Holl for this year and next year, mind you, who is a right-handed defenseman. So you're trading a right-handed defenseman for a right-handed defenseman. You're offloading him to Columbus Blue Jackets for this rest of this year and next year with a 5th and a 3rd round pick. I think it's relatively cheap. The 5th round pick for the 5th and 3rd round pick kind of cover with Justin Holl. Again, if Red Wings want to retain, cool, makes it a little bit easier, a little bit cheaper. But again, I think that's a decent acquisition. It might cost a little bit more, but again, Justin Holl is a right-handed defenseman, and you might be able to flip him at next trade deadline as well. So that'd be a good, easy try. Again, these aren't big moves, but these are some things that could be done. Another one, my last one is Matt Grzelcyk. Matt Grzelcyk is a 31-year-old D. He shoots left, and so far this season with the Penguins, he's shooting almost at a half a point per game. Player, a defenseman. So this guy is 31. He's a little more veteran leadership, right? So he expires at the end of this year. He had signed a 1-year deal with the team for $2.75 million. To me, again, a little older. And it's bigger that you want to move off of Erik Gustafsson again. This is another guy they were trying to move off of, who has the rest of this year and next year as well, right? So at $2 million a year, Pittsburgh Penguins, who are going through a retool right now, Erik Gustafsson has worked out on other teams. He's just not worked out on the Detroit Red Wings, especially with them being so hot. You think that he would have also been hot. Is one of the players that has not clicked yet with the Detroit Red Wings. So far, we see what he's got so far. In 49 games, he has 14 points. So by picking up Matt Grzelcyk for the Red Wings, it is an upgrade on the left side. Still third pair D. But I think you move out Cross Hannes, who I think is a player who is a little bit more injury prone, and with a 4th round pick. Okay, I don't think the Red Wings are going to re-sign him. They already signed him to his ELC. But to me, this guy has not played a ton, but he is a prospect that I think that the Pittsburgh Penguins could try out. And so far this year in the AHL, he has 12 points in 45 games. Mind you, he does have some talent though. In the 21-22 season, we saw him get 86 points in 63 games with the Portland Winterhawks. So there is some talent there. I just don't think it's with the Red Wings. I think that this guy, he can play center. He's 23 years old. He's about to graduate the AHL. I just don't think it's a guy that the Red Wings are going to end up giving a contract to. I just don't know if there's going to be, he's desirable enough, right? Bergen had a hard enough time cracking the lineup last year, and he was at almost a point per game in the AHL. So I'm like, I just don't think it's gonna be possible that he's gonna be able to crack the lineup at all, in my opinion. So, Pittsburgh gets a prospect that they can sign, try him out for a little bit, give him a 1-year contract, see if it works. Try him out in Wilkes-Barre or try him out with the NHL team and see if it works. So, and then throw in a 4th round pick as well. I think that's a good value to take back for Gustafsson in that extra year. Then you can take it out back Grzelcyk, who is expiring this year. So those are my quick quick picks and everything for the Detroit Red Wings to try out. Let me know what your thoughts are on those. Moving on to the last bit of information we have is we have an Andrew Copp is on IR. So we have this. We're talking about this and the rookies as well. So Andrew Copp is on injured reserve. He came and he threw an elbow, I believe, on Matt Boldy during the Minnesota Wild game, and we saw that his elbow went up. Not a great move. Ends up, it looks like he hurt his arm or elbow. He grabbed it right afterwards and skated off the ice. Didn't even continue with the fight. As well as Rasmussen, who got hit in the head during the Anaheim game by Trevor Zegras. The play was not called, and the ref said they did not see anything, but he was just Trevor Zegras just had a hearing today, and it's been suspended for 3 games. So he is out day to day. Red Wings call up Sheldon Dries, who is he's a perpetual AHLer. He's not, he's not a guy. He's undrafted. He's 30 years old. Again, pretty much an AHLer for his whole career. He played a little bit with Vancouver Canucks and the Colorado Avalanche, but overall, pretty much an AHLer. Currently with the Grand Rapids Griffins, has 27 points in 48 games. That allows the young guys to stay down in Grand Rapids and continue to progress. And we're not forcing them. You're not trying to get Danielson up here too early. You don't want, and again, you don't want Danielson sitting in the press box either. Sheldon Dries is basically going to sit in the press box and make a little bit of coin up here while he's here. His deal, real quick, just to tell you, in the minors, he makes $475,000. In the NHL, he makes $775,000. So he's making a little almost double of what he's making per day in the NHL. So I don't think he's mad about having to sit in the press box for that one. So good for him. Good for him. So talking about Detroit's lineup, though, we got to see who we have. And so this is where I'm talking about the Red Wings. And I'm going to show the page of Puckpedia as well, just to kind of review what we're seeing with the Red Wings and how this team started to shake out. We're looking at Puckpedia. The first line's got, look at who we have, who are Yzerplan's guys. We have Kasper on the left side, Larkin in the center, and Raymond on the right side. Larkin was going to be your captain. You knew he was going to be the guy. Yzerplan signed him to that 8-year contract as well. Raymond, he signs him. He drafts him in 2020 and signed him into an 8-year. He's in the first year of his 8-year contract. He's looking phenomenal, absolute breakout star, point per game. Kasper starting to develop his own. This is his first year as an NHLer. Really started to prove himself down in the AHL. And again, now being on the first line with Larkin and Raymond, has 22 points, 53 games. So we're starting to see Kasper really start to improve here. And mind you, he's only 20 years old. He's the first year of his ELC. So we have 2 more years of him to continue to develop. You have Alex DeBrincat, who Yzerplan traded for. Again, I think he's a tradable person. But again, Alex DeBrincat, a guy that Yzerplan sought after, right? To me, there's a difference between a trade where you're seeking after a guy and a free agency when you're kind of trying to, I don't want to say bargain bin, but you're trying to, you're in free agency, you're overpaying for guys. This is what I've been told. This is what I heard, and this is what I believe. I think it makes a ton of sense. To give you an example, Comfer signed for 5 years. At 5 years at $5.1 million. It was for what we're getting with Comfer at 29 years old, who's not going to continue to get better. That is too expensive. If you had gotten him, so in free agency, it's typically you pay $1 million extra per year for one more year than you want to. So if you've gotten Comfer at 4.1 for 4 years, a lot more tolerable of a contract. So to me, I think that it was a guy that they're like, hey, we kind of need a center, and Copp wasn't working out. So they had signed Copp the year before. It's like, oh, this center's not working out. Let's try Comfer too. So they try a second center, a second middle to bottom 6 center. That's just not really working out. But you have guys that are coming up. Do you know who's going to end up taking Comfer spot? A Nate Danielson, right? Or a Kasper. Maybe you put a Danielson on the top line to help break into the NHL to learn speed, and you put Kasper on that second line center. That's something that could be happening for next year. Again, this is about the Yzerplan plan working out. Patrick Kane, he was enticed to come here by Alex DeBrincat. It's working out pretty well overall. He had a really slow start this year with Alone, and then now with Todd McLellan, one of the best performing players in the NHL right now. So Patrick Kane's looking really well. Elmer Soderblom, who the reason he got called up was because there was a ton of injuries. So you have a guy who's 6'8", 247 pounds, almost 250 pounds. He's only 23 years old. And the fact that this 6th-round pick is made it up to here is amazing. And currently this year, only played 11 games so far. He's got 5 points in this game. He's almost a half-point per game player this year with the Red Wings. And mind you, in 22-23, he played 21 games. He had 8 points during that time. So right now he's on pace to be his current point totals right now. And in the Grand Rapids Griffins, he wasn't killing it. He was 17 points in 38 games. And the year before that, he had 29 points in 61 games. He's about a half-point per game player. He wasn't really thriving down there. But now since being called up, you can see the effort. You can see the hands. This guy's in front of the net. He's causing chaos. And this is a great bottom sixer. I'm a big fan of this as well. Joe Veleno, a guy that has not been, in my opinion, not been working out as well. He has 10 points in 52 games. He's got double the amount of points as Soderblom in 5 times as many games. So that's where I'm like, okay, Joe Veleno, this is a guy that is a tradable piece, but who wants a 25-year-old who's not scoring? He's in his first year of a 2-year contract. Cool, but I think Veleno is, again, Soderblom was an Yzerplan rookie. He was a guy that he drafted. Veleno, I'm going to be a little mean. He's a leftovers from the Holland era. I think Joe Veleno's got a lot of spike to him. I don't think he's being utilized. I think he's a little frustrated because I think he wants to play higher in the lineup. I think he needs a fresh change of scenery. Similar to the next guy we're talking about, Tarasenko, who was signed on the second day of free agency this past year. The reason you picked on the second day of free agency is no one wanted you on the first day, right? And so we're like, oh man, when they signed Tarasenko, I was very excited. I thought I was like, oh, this guy's gonna pot like 25, 30 goals. Like he's gonna be probably maybe a 55, 60 point guy. Is not working out that so far. He is not producing like we want to see him. He only has 23 points in 55 games. He's on point for some of the worst totals of his year that he's ever had in this season. So I am concerned. I'm like, hey, we need to move off this guy. Again, free agency, you pay a little too much for a little too long. You probably only want to get a 1-year contract, but you pay him for 2 because, at a certain number. But that's how that one happened. That's how that one goes. So then we're looking at a couple other guys. This is bottom six guys. Berggren, left over from the Holland era. He was a 2018 pick. He has 17 points in 55 games. I'm curious if they re-sign him. I think he's also a guy that could be traded. I think he's got a good enough higher upside to be some sort of middle 6 guy. Probably more like a third line winger, kind of like a Daniel Sprong. But I do like Berggren. I hope they keep him because he seems like a ton of fun on the videos that they have him. Christian Fischer, bottom 6 guy, switch him in. Cool. Tyler Mott, AHL, fringe NHL guy. Cool. Awesome. I'm going to drop down to the press box because it has a couple of you have Michael Rasmussen and Sheldon Dries. We talked about Sheldon Dries already. Rasmussen, good guy. Not an Yzerplan pick. Again, Sheldon Dries, free agency, AHL guy. Rasmussen, not an Yzerplan pick. Not one of the guys that he could see probably for the long term. And probably an overhype for a 9th overall pick. So he was drafted too high. He should have been a late first round guy instead. But they got him. You got to work with what Yzerplan had to work with what he's got, right? We're looking at defense real quick. A Ben Sherratt, a free agency guy. I was like, man, dude, someone's gonna overpay for Sherratt. And then Yzerplan was the guy who overpaid for Sherratt, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. And he's a rough and tumble guy. He wears the ALI. He's got 9 points, 56 games, but he is definitely not a first line guy. To me, the Red Wings currently have a top first pair, a very good first pair in Seider Edvinsson, but you can't have all the talent on the top line. So you split it up. You put Sherratt, because you're not putting Gustafsson on the top pair with Seider, right? You put Sherratt up there. Sherratt's probably more like a third pair guy. Edvinson's a first pair. Gustafsson's third pair. Basically, Red Wings have a bunch of third pair guys. Everyone's third pair besides Edvinsson and Seider. And the only one who deserves to be third pair that makes sense is Albert Johansson, who was an Yzerplan draftee. He was an Yzerplan draftee in 2019. So a guy that he picked. And the reason he does that is because he's a rookie. He's his first year in the NHL. He needs to be a third pair guy. He's currently playing second pair guy because he is better than Justin Holl currently, who's Johansson's playing on the right side as a left-hander because Jeff Petrie is out, who should be in this position. But if Petrie comes back, I honestly just might put Petrie on the bottom pair and scratch Holl and leave Johansson where he's at because Edmundson Johansson looks very good. And I'd rather continue to see Johansson develop and figure out what you have in him than a guy like Justin Holl, who's 33, who's not going to be part of the long-term plan, or Jeff Petrie, who's 37, who will be gone next year. Honestly, keep Petrie scratched either. That's fine with me too. Then you have a Gustafsson. Again, you overpaid for him in free agency. That's what happened. You needed to fill the left side. Justin Holl, you wanted a right-handed defenseman. You overpaid for him, $3.4 million for 3 years. Again, that looks a lot better if it's 2 years at $2.4 million. And you'd be off this contract, but you'd be off the contract next year, by the way. So those are not working out that well either. So again, a Copp, same thing, overpaid for him, similar to Comfer, overpaid for too long, for too much. Petrie, he wanted to trade. This looked like a good trade at first because you're like, oh, he's a little bit older, veteran guy, but he's put up really great. He put up really great numbers with the Montreal Canadiens. The Petrie project is fine. Problem is he's expected to play a second pair. He's more of a third pair guy. He's being asked too much to Petrie. And again, it was a trade, but it was kind of like it was very cheap. You traded out a guy you're not using, a seventh defenseman in Gustav Lindstrom and a 4th round pick for Petrie. So you got a guy who is a 7th defenseman, fringe AHLer, who has been waived and claimed a bunch of times, and a 4th round pick for a guy who is in your lineup in Petrie. That's an upgrade. It's not a great upgrade, but it is an upgrade at least. So now talking about the goalies, I think Yzerplan hit on this totally. Line we saw last year is not a 1A 1B. He's a pretty good backup. But if you overplay Lyon, you start to see some holes in him. I think for $900,000 for the 2 years that you got him was a phenomenal contract coming off that Florida Panthers going to the Stanley Cup Finals. He's being part of that winning culture. I think that was a great pickup. And then Cam Talbot at 2 years at $2.5 million. He has looked so much better. He is absolutely worth the $2.5 million, if not more, because he has been just killing it this year. Actually, I'm going to pull up their stats. Lyon, I know, he's definitely gone down in his performance and everything. Currently, Alex Lyon, a 902 save percentage. Okay, so he's right about average right now, so that's fine. And then Cam Talbot at 906, a little bit better than Lyon. So these guys are just average to above average. Good, that's awesome. And then the 2.8 goals against, the 2.774 goals against. Cool. Like these guys are playing pretty well overall. Both have winning records and everything too. So you like to see that. So both have goals saved above expected. So goals saved above expected. Cam Talbot has saved 9.5 more goals than he would have expected to. And Alex Lyon has saved 5.4 goals more than expected. So they are outperforming what they're doing on the ice, right? So I like these. Those are great those were great. Those worked out really well. But again, these are guys that I think, again, you're looking at the team. When you look at what Yzerplan is going to be bringing up next year, you're going to be bringing up, that is the raw. Yeah, this is it. We're looking at who's going to be brought up next year. You got a Nate Danielson who could be brought up next year. Currently 26 points in 50 games, a half point per game player. That was what Marco Casper was at last year. Like a half point per game player. So you bring up a Danielson who will turn 20 next year. That would be phenomenal. If you bring up a Carter Mazur, who's at 10 points in 16 games. So when he plays well, but he's been so injured this year. You might be able to bring him up. And Amadeus Lombardi, he probably needs another year in the AHL, but a phenomenal. I mean, he's 5'10", but he could be a phenomenal kind of like your not Lombardi. He would be a great Ryan Lomberg down in the AHL. He definitely Lombardi definitely needs to gain some weight. He's 165 pounds right now, 5'10". But he's looking like a great little water bug down in the AHL. So that's a guy that could come up as well. So that's just on the offensive side. And you have Andre Beecher, who was just drafted this past year, signed a contract. He's got 10 points, 38 games. We'll see him develop as well. And then you have William Wallinder, who could come up as a D. You know, you have Ante Tuomisto. They might bring him up 21 points in 46 games, almost half point per game player. He's 24 years old. He's going to graduate the AHL. He's a Finnish player. By the way, another Finnish player, Emil Viro, another Finnish player. You signed Mikko Rantanen. You got a couple Finnish players to play with him, right? Milviro, very defensively minded, only 4 points in 46 games. So I don't know if they end up re-signing him. But those are some guys that you can absolutely bring up. And then the biggest rookie that you could absolutely bring up next year, who could be the great game changer if you don't you don't re-sign Alex Lyon, which I don't think you will, is the big fish in Sebastian Cossa. So if we go to Sebastian Cossa right now, his numbers, he played one game this year in the NHL. He won in the shootout. He won in overtime in his debut. He let based on this, he had 2.67 goals against average, fine, and his save percentage is 88.5. But again, he only played one game. So, and he came in as a relief too. He came in cold. If you look at his AHL numbers right now, one of the better goalies in the AHL right now, put up a 914 save percentage, a 2.34 goals against average. I mean, in 29 games, phenomenal. And his numbers look very similar. He's actually gotten better in his goals against average throughout the year. So, it's just only improved. Even last year with the Griffins, he had a 2.41 goals against average and the same save percentage. So there's so excitement. If you're not a Red Wings fan, this is the Red Wings podcast from Undrafted Hockey Fan. You need to get on the Red Wings bandwagon. These are going to have so many good guys coming up. There's so many promising prospects. We're not talking about Michael Branson-Nygaard, who's out in the SHL. We're not talking about Axel Pellikka, who could make the team next year as a right-handed defenseman. That would be the reason you trade off of a Justin Holl, right? You definitely why you let a Petrie go. There's so much good opportunity. It's so exciting. It's so much fun. I'm just living for this team, and it's gonna be the greatest. It's gonna be the greatest. I'm so fired up. So make sure you stay tuned to this podcast. Stay tuned to the Red Wings. They're gonna be so good. I'm just so excited. So let me know what your thoughts are. Hit like, subscribe. If you're on Spotify or Apple, just star it. Whatever you got to do. Tune in. Follow me at Twitter at Undrafted Hockey Fan. Come say hi. And I just love you guys. I hope you guys had a good time. I had a great time. This is a great podcast. I thought I came in with some notes, but I just wanted to talk straight love for the Red Wings. This is just an all love for the Red Wings podcast. So I love you guys. I hope you guys have a great night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.